The Rangers take games 1 and 2 of the ALDS, winning both the games on the road and are now 1 win away from their first ALCS appearance since 2011. We're going to talk about all that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On to the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 10 seasons, including all 5 as the founder and host of Locked On Rangers. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to listen every day and to comment nearly any single thing below. Today is Sunday, October 8th, and your Rangers, they are 1 win away from an ALCS berth in a matchup against either those stinking Houston Astros or the Minnesota Twins. The Rangers have not lost a single postseason game, and they have played 4 games, and they have all been on the road against the 2 teams with the best records in the American League. We're going to break down what's happened the last couple of games in this ALDS series. But first, this episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, this Rangers game didn't start off in the best way for Texas. And one of the things that we knew about this home umpire that the broadcast mentioned was that this umpire was not going to give a very big zone. John Lipka did I think, a really good job of being consistent in this game and not giving a big zone to either pitcher, to any of the pitchers that were in this game. And, that can be really tough on Jordan Montgomery. Jordan Montgomery is a guy who relies on being outside the strike zone, inducing some chases, some swings and misses out of the zone, whereas the Rangers offense is really incredible at staying disciplined and forcing pitchers to get in the zone. Now, we've talked about Grayson Rodriguez, and I talked about it on the preview show on Friday or Thursday night, whenever that actually ended up going live, that a lot of these Orioles pitchers, they are not very erratic. These starting pitchers specifically, they are usually pretty good about staying in the strike zone and not walking a whole bunch of guys. Well, that turned out to be not the case. I did say it's a lot of their first playoff games. I think there were 6 players maybe on this roster that have any postseason experience whatsoever. And the Rangers have some postseason experience. They have some veterans in there, and these young guys, well, they weren't quite rattled in the first game, but in this one, the pitching staff, they were not quite able to hit their spots. And the thing this Rangers lineup does incredibly well is force you to work deep counts to absolutely everybody. And the biggest change, you might already be screaming at me, is Bryce, why have you not talked about Mitch Garver hitting third? Well, I'm talking about it now. Mitch Garver hitting third in this lineup for the first time in the postseason. Oh my goodness, I cannot believe it took this long for him to hit third in the lineup to offer some protection to Corey Seager, because as we saw in this one, the Baltimore Orioles are absolutely terrified of Corey Seager destroying them. Absolutely terrified of what he could do to them. And you need a guy like Mitch Garver, who is one of your best hitters, to be the protection in the lineup if they work around Corey Seager, as they did. 5 walks for Corey Seager in this one, which is an MLB postseason record. Nobody has ever walked 5 times in a game before. And Corey Seager was just really, I think he got maybe 1 pitch to hit all day, maybe 1 pitch to hit all day, and he fouled it off. I'm sure he was real mad at himself for that. That was in a big spot with runners in scoring position, I believe, if I remember correctly. But Mitch Garver said, don't worry. I got you. I got your protection. Had a 2-hit day, including a grand slam, the first Rangers playoff grand slam since the walk-off grand slam in the ALCS in 2011 by, of course, the one, the only Nelson freaking Cruz. What a day for this offense that, you may be thinking, oh, well, if you're just tuning in and you didn't watch the game, you thought, oh, well, the Rangers scored 11 runs, so they must have had a bunch of homers. They must have had a bunch of guys on base, a bunch of extra base hits. And that really wasn't the case. And that's the thing that I love about this offense, is that they don't have to beat you with the home run ball. They don't have to beat you with the extra base hit. They can just beat you by walking 11 times in a game. 11 times, 11 hits. And they were actually out hit by the Orioles, 14 hits by those Baltimore Orioles, and they only had 2 walks that they took off of Rangers pitchers, which is a reason why this Rangers staff was so good, or at least good enough in this one. But this is all about the offense. It's about everybody in this offense coming through. One of their other 2 extra base hits came from the 8 and 9 spots in this lineup, which is Josh Young and Leody Taveras, which Leody Taveras had a phenomenal day. The Rangers went down early in this one because the Baltimore Orioles were really getting to Jordan Montgomery early. I mean, they got 2 runs off of him, a couple of weakly hit ground balls that just kind of found some holes, which is really frustrating for Montgomery, who you really wanted to see go deep into this game. But with the Rangers put 5 runs on the board in the second and 4 runs on the board in the third, that kind of made Jordan Montgomery sit down for a little while, and he was fine in those innings after coming back after those. I mean, the bottom of the second, after the Rangers scored 5, he put up a shutdown inning. Then after the Rangers dropped a 4 spot in the third inning, he also dropped a shutdown inning there. Rangers went quietly in the 4th, and that's when he allowed a couple of runs in the bottom of that 4th inning, came back for the 5th, and just did not quite have it. And in comes Cody Bradford. We'll talk about him a little bit in a second. But this Rangers team, I mean, they finally hit with runners in scoring position, and I think, I forgot who it was I was talking to on Twitter that brought up the stat that maybe we should change it, or at least change the way we think about it, because the Rangers did go 5 for 17 with runners in scoring position, but it wasn't a whole lot of extra base hits. It wasn't a whole lot of doubles. There were some sac flies. There was some grounding into a double play, and that drove the run home, or at least 1 run home. And the Rangers do a really good job. They did leave 10 men on base, but they do what they need to get this team going, to get runs in. I mean, one of the at-bats of the game was Jonah Heim and his RBI single. It was an 0-2 count. They had runners at the corners. I believe it was it was 2 outs. He had an 0-2 count against Grayson Rodriguez, and he had just swung through and missed a fastball. And you had Evan Carter at first base, an 0-2 count, and the Rangers put on the hit and run, which I think might have just been honestly kind of a middle finger almost. Not really. It was a tactical play, but like the way they executed it was just got to be so deflating for the Baltimore Orioles, which if you remember in the 9th inning of the game on Saturday, it seems like there was a hit and run miscue. Aaron Hicks was at the plate and Gunnar Henderson got the hit and run signal, and Aaron Hicks did not. So, of course, Gunnar Henderson was thrown out at second base by Jonah Heim. Not a great jump. Didn't really look like it was a jump for a steal. Looked more like a hit and run, and he kept looking back at the catcher to see, oh, is he swinging? Did he line this out? Is he popping up? Do I need to get back to first base? It wasn't really as much like a straight steal. I mean, Gunnar Henderson is a fast base runner and a smart base runner, and Aaron Hicks just looked kind of confused and perplexed, and the Orioles manager in the dugout looked confused and perplexed. And after the game, they said it was a miscommunication about a hit and run. Gunnar Henderson said the same thing, and that proved to be a huge out for the Rangers in that one. But the Rangers executed, because with Evan Carter running to second base at that time, Jorge Mateo had to cover it, and Jonah Heim just slaps the ball the opposite field for an RBI single. I believe at that point it gave the Rangers the lead, because the Rangers had already gotten 2 runs off of the Leody Taveras RBI double to tie the game after they went down 2-0. And then they poured on 5 runs in that second inning, 4 runs in the third, and it felt almost done at that point. It wasn't quite, because there were some struggles from Jordan Montgomery and from the Rangers bullpen, but they did get a fantastic playoff debut from one Cody Bradford. We're going to talk about that, what the bullpen did, and why this team can never, ever make a game easy. But first, this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Getting tickets to events should not be easy. And, there's no better place to get in on the action than Gametime. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute tickets and all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. All-in prices show your total upfront and show you're getting a great deal without all these hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute tickets. And if you want to go see these Rangers potentially close out the Baltimore Orioles on Game 3 at home on Tuesday, then I promise you Gametime is going to be the best place to find those tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB, LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Now, shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day on tomorrow's show. Might be doing a bit of a mailbag, looking at a little bit closer at the game one of this series and a little bit of a general big picture preview of what's been going on versus what I expected in this series. The Rangers take on the Orioles this week and catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, this Rangers offense came up in a huge way today. Incredibly consistent. Would have always been nice to get a few more runs, but the Rangers offense did their job, and the Rangers pitching, well, wasn't a great day from Jordan Montgomery. Just four innings for him in this one, 5 runs, 4 of which were earned, just 2 strikeouts, the 1 solo shot, a just absolutely massive tater by Gunnar Henderson on a meatball that was hung right over the plate. And, it just was not his day. It was a tough game for him, having to go sit down for long stretches and get back up and then sit back down for long stretches. And he wasn't particularly efficient. I mean, 88 pitches to get through 4+ innings in this one was not the Jordan Montgomery that we saw against Tampa Bay. This offense is very good. They haven't been super great against lefties, and I think a lot of it had to do with the long stretches of getting up, sitting down, the inconsistent or the smaller than he's used to strike zone. And let's face it, this Orioles team is also really good at not chasing and forcing guys to get in the zone against them. It felt like it would have been really easy for this Orioles team to just get down on themselves. I mean, you're down 9-2 before you get to the bottom of the 3rd inning, and it would be so easy for this team to just be like, yep, we're gonna roll over, keel over, and die. But they didn't. And all credit to these Baltimore hitters. This is what I talked about in the preview, is this is a young team that doesn't freaking know any better. They don't know any better that they should be defeated. They're like, no, we've overcome these huge deficits. We know this Rangers pen is shaky at best, and we've got the starter on the ropes. We were making him work, and there's no reason we couldn't get him out early and then get to the long men in this Rangers pen, or get to even the back end guys in this Rangers pen if they can't continue to pour on. And you know what? For the most part, they did. They made this a game all the way to the 9th inning where the Rangers had to use their closer. But if they had just trusted Cody Bradford to go a little bit longer, maybe the Rangers wouldn't have had to get into that situation. But this is a great day for Cody Bradford. No, it wasn't a great day for Jordan Montgomery. 4 of the 4 innings, he at least got him 4 innings, and that's the absolute bare minimum. But Cody Bradford and being trusted to go this deep into a game, I know it was a huge lead, but Bruce Bochy having trust in this kid, Cody Bradford, his second start in Major League Baseball was against this team, or at least his second start this season. I think that was just his second start in general, because his MLB debut was like 2 weeks before that against the Atlanta Braves, where he was being sacrificed to the Wolves to buy some time for this rotation after a long road trip to just get everybody more rest. It's like, all right, here you go, kid. Here's the Atlanta Braves offense. They're kind of going to murder you, but just do what you can, keep us in it. Maybe we'll see how that goes. But he was incredible in this one. 3 2/3 innings, just 3 hits allowed, 4 strikeouts for him. And he did leave in that 8th inning. And Josh Sborz came in, a high leverage guy, even though at that point it was, I believe, a 10-5 lead, so a 5-run lead. So it wasn't out of the woods by any means by the time he came into this. This is still very much a game that was winnable for Baltimore. But Cody Bradford said, no, I'm going to sit you guys down. I'm going to be efficient. And even though he got some bad luck with that bloop double that ended up chasing him from the game, I don't know what on earth the Orioles third base coach was thinking, not sending Jorge Mateo at that point to go score the run. But he held him. It was 2 outs. In comes Josh Sborz, throws 1 pitch, gets 1 out, and the Rangers head to the 9th inning, and they get 1 run off of Yennier Cano, which is the closer of this Baltimore Orioles team. They forced the closer in, which, again, you kind of have to, at that point, kind of try and stop the tide. I mean, give yourself some kind of a chance in this one. Then the Rangers decided to go with Brock Burke in the 9th inning, and he had a walk and a hit. And that was enough. He got 1 out, and then he gave up those 2 base runners. In comes Jose Leclerc. And I thought, oh, dear God, please don't put in Jose Leclerc. Not because I don't trust Jose Leclerc, but because this will be his back-to-back. He'll be throwing in back-to-back days, or he has now thrown in back-to-back days. And if the Rangers won this one, which they did, And if they had avoided using Jose Leclerc, that would have been nice. But now I think the Rangers are going to go to Jose Leclerc in game 3, no matter what the situation is, if they are winning. If they are losing, I don't think we see him at all. But this means that will be him pitching 3 games in 4 days. And I know he is healthy at this point, but it just feels like asking a lot of him. I mean, we didn't have there was no Aroldis Chapman available in this one. I'm glad that even though it got to desperation time, the Rangers didn't put in Aroldis Chapman because that could have made that feel even worse. And Leclerc comes in and he gives up an absolute bomb. He pitched right down the middle to Aaron Hicks, one of the few guys on this team with some postseason experience. And Aaron Hicks had a phenomenal day. 2 hits, including driving in the first 2 runs of this game with that weak single. But he also had that 3-run homer that made it incredibly nervous in the 9th inning. I mean, my biggest concern with Jose Leclerc being thrown in there is that, well, what if the doors fall off for Jose Leclerc and you have nobody behind him? Josh Sborz was already out of the game at that point through 1 pitch, and he's going to be throwing if the Rangers throw him in game 3, which I imagine they will if they're in a winning situation, or even if it's close. I think that we'll see Josh Sborz. I think we'll see Aroldis Chapman. We might see Sborz for multiple innings because he only had to throw 1 pitch, but that would be 3 games in 4 days for Sborz. But he literally only threw 1 pitch in this one. But you had Leclerc up and down and up and down, and that can wear on a guy for sure. And I was a little concerned, not trusting Bradford to stay out there. It ended up being the right call, putting Sborz in, killing any kind of life that the Orioles had. And that's why it was really tough seeing Montgomery only go through 4 innings, not being able to get 5, because if he got 5 and then you got 3 2/3 from Bradford, then say he's in that situation, runners on second, third, you bring in Sborz, he gets 1 pitch and then you're out of it. You don't have to use Burke or Leclerc at all in this one. And Leclerc would be completely fresh for a game 3, and Sborz would be mostly fresh for a game 3. But that's now not how it happened. And before this, the Rangers pen had been really good, really, really good in these situations in October. Like, just kind of incredibly, unbelievably good. I mean, the Rangers had given up 1 run before this game from their pen in the first 3 games, and it was Dane Dunning giving up 1 solo shot as the piggyback starter. So not even really technically the bullpen. You got 1 out from Will Smith in the game on Saturday. You got an inning of scoreless baseball from Josh Sborz. You got an inning of scoreless baseball from Aroldis Chapman and Jose Leclerc. That is your ideal. Things are going well. What the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning of Sborz to Chapman to Leclerc to finish it off in a game that was incredibly close. And the Rangers were able to rally and win close. They were able to rally and win big. Both of these, actually, at least no, just this game was a comeback win. The Rangers held on to a lead late with a 1-run lead late in the Saturday game. And I mean, this is huge. This is huge. This is what teams that go on deep runs do. They go to these big places, these places with some Baltimore fans that, a huge credit to them, stayed in this game all the way through, even when their team was down 9-2. After 2.5 innings, they did not give up hope. Yeah, there were some boos, and sometimes that helps. I mean, you might not be a fan who boos. I'm not personally a fan who boos. Sometimes, they were caring very loudly, and they were in it every single pitch, no matter if they were down by 9 runs or 5 runs or 3 runs at the end. That crowd really kept that team in it, gave them some life, gave them some hope, and some sign of, hey, I know it's been a rough few years, and this has been a fantastic season. It's, oh my goodness, the Minnesota Twins taking a 3-0 lead on Framber Valdez and the Astros as I'm watching this live out of the corner of my eye. But back to the fans of the Orioles, like, honestly, a massive credit to them, because it would be so easy. I mean, this team, I think that's the first playoff series that Camden Yards hosted since 2014 it was, and they've lost a lot of games, just like the Rangers the last few years. And, they are a crowd that didn't really get a chance to really explode for some happiness that much on Saturday, as the Rangers kind of kept the lid on it. But they were able to have some big moments and have some happy moments for Gunnar Henderson getting his first playoff home run, Aaron Hicks a huge playoff home run, taking a lead in their building in the bottom of the first inning against the Rangers' best starter in Jordan Montgomery. That was a huge outing for them. And by no means, this Baltimore team has never been swept this year. They have not been swept in 91 consecutive series. And you think they want to keep that streak alive? Yeah, they want to not only keep that streak alive, they want to reverse sweep the Rangers. They want to go take it to them. And the Rangers, by no means have their job completely done. I mean, they're up 2-0. This is going to be an absolute dogfight. Coming up, we're going to look at why this is going to be an absolute dogfight, why I'm incredibly confident at the Rangers hopefully being able to close this out, and a little bit more about the future of both of these teams and why it is looking like this is just the first of many, many intense playoff series we're going to see between them over the next few years. But first, this word from our sponsors. Shout out to the everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. On Tuesday, I will be doing another live stream, hopefully right after the Rangers maybe end up finishing off a sweep. The Rangers take on the Orioles this week and catch every pitch with the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, there was a lot of talk about the future of the Orioles throughout this broadcast. There was a lot of talk about, the Orioles have so many young guys that are coming up and so many, top prospects. And oh my gosh, the future is just so incredibly bright. And it is. And it is. But it felt kind of like burying the Orioles throughout this broadcast, which, again, I mean, I've got plenty of gripes with this broadcast, including John Smoltz and his analytics diatribe nonsense bullcrap that he was pulling and has pulled and will continue to pull throughout his entire broadcasting career. And I do think that this Orioles team is very young and fun and like not just scrappy, like I talked about in the preview. Like they're a darn good team. They're a 101 win team. That they are a juggernaut of a team. That you don't win 101 games by being fun and kind of scrappy and annoying. No, this is a darn good team. But the Rangers have a darn good team as well. This is the best offense on the American League side of the bracket. It is the deepest offense. It is an offense filled with young guys. Young, homegrown guys, something you haven't been able to say about the Texas Rangers for a long, long time. You have Evan Carter, who has moved all the way up to the 5-hole in this lineup. You have Josh Young, the first 2 months of the year, rookie of the year, until Gunnar Henderson went on an absolute tear and Josh Young missed 6 weeks due to injury. And then you have Leody Taveras coming up with his reaching base 3 times, couple of RBIs, couple of 3 runs scored for him in this one. And this Rangers team isn't going anywhere either. And by the way, they're talking about, well, how are they going to fit their top prospect in all of baseball? Well, I don't know who he was talking about. I mean, I do know exactly who he's talking about. Jackson Holliday is a very good young prospect and probably the best prospect in all of baseball. But I think he might not be a consensus top 1 prospect in all of baseball next year, because there's a little guy named Wyatt Langford who had a pretty nice start to his minor league career. There's also a guy named Evan Carter who still has rookie eligibility left as far as I remember how rookie eligibility works. Yeah, Evan Carter had 75 plate appearances this year. I think that's still well within the range of being a rookie next year, and is probably going to be the favorite for AL Rookie of the Year next year with what Evan Carter is doing. I mean, the guy just does not stop reaching base. He had the first couple appearances of this, or plate appearances of this postseason, where he actually reached out of the zone a lot. There's one that was a ground into just a fielder's choice, where he expanded the zone on 3 straight pitches, which just felt very uncharacteristic for Mr. Evan Carter. But, still got to hit, got to walk, still hitting 500 for the postseason, still has an OPS of 1806 in this postseason, which leads the Texas Rangers. And down there, Josh Young, a 1264 OPS in the postseason. He's hitting 375. Leody Taveras in the 9-hole, hitting 333 with an 844 OPS in the postseason. And you look at the 2 and 3 hitters in this lineup today. Corey Seager hitting 417 in the playoffs, 1,300 OPS, and Mitch Garver hitting 333 with an 1166 OPS. Now, Mitch Garver is not here for the long haul. And I know Corey Seager and Marcus Semien aren't prospects, but they're also here for the long haul. And the Rangers went all in this deadline and the last couple of years with their spending. And as much as I like the Orioles, and I think they're in a really set up for a really great place the next couple of years, and obviously really, really like the Locked On Orioles podcast. Shout out Connor Newcomb. And he's got a really, great team to cheer for the next couple of years. But the thing that Connor's talked about a lot on his show, and that I have noticed very much so with the Orioles, is that they're not a team that's very aggressive in terms of how they spend. They are incredible at young player development. I mean, look at all these young players that are here for them, that are flying on the radar. I mean, Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Austin Hayes, Aaron Hicks, not Young, but Cedric Mullins. I mean, Jorge Mateo with a 4-hit day in this one, an absolute pest to the Rangers. I mean, a huge, huge day for him. But the thing that they haven't done is spend money. I mean, one of the guys who's top 5 on the Orioles payroll this year is Chris Davis. Yeah, you heard me right. Chris Davis, the former Ranger great, the former Oriole great, had a couple of years in Baltimore that were absolutely phenomenal, got a huge contract, and then fell off an absolute cliff. And because the Orioles have been so cheap, they decided to, take the who is it? I can't think of exactly who it is, the Bobby Bonilla, the route, and make that payout go about 1.5, 2.5, I think 3.5 million a couple of years every year until Chris Young is like 52 or something. It is a long time that's going to be on the books. And he is one of their top 5 highest paid players this year. And I think at most he's making $3.5 million. That is difficult. And they've also talked about how hard it's going to be for them to, maintain their core of these players and sign into long-term deals. And that is not something that bodes super well. And at the deadline, this was not a team that did a whole lot. I mean, I talked in the preview show about how their starting pitching actually ended up being a lot better than people thought it would be. I mean, the guys who they have as their starters, I know Grayson Rodriguez didn't go very well in this one, inning in 2/3, 5 runs, 6 hits, 4 walks, did have 2 strikeouts. But the guy who they traded for is Jack Flaherty. And he had 3 walks, 2 hits, 1 run in 2 innings of work in total mop-up relief in this one. The Rangers really could have done a lot more to get to Jack Flaherty in this one, but he's the only guy who they got at the trade deadline. And I really thought that they could have shored up their relief a little bit more. They did also get Shintaro Fujinami, but Shintaro Fujinami didn't even make their postseason roster for this ALDS. Now he might if they end up pulling off this reverse sweep and beating the Rangers and heading to the ALCS. But that's 2 guys that they made trades for, and they weren't super consequential. None of them are making playoff starts for them. Now, the Rangers, on the other hand, went and got Jordan Montgomery. And I know this line doesn't look pretty, but what he did in that wild card game to set the tone was absolutely huge. And what he did down the stretch to keep this Rangers team afloat when they needed every single inning, every single start from every starter they could get, the Rangers were aggressive there. And when it comes to the offseason and spending money, I know the Rangers are, I don't know who the Rangers are going to go get, but they're going to go throw money at somebody. They still need some starting pitching next year. I mean, we'll see what Max Scherzer looks like if he comes back in this postseason, depending on how deep a run the Rangers make, depending on how healthy he is. Again, I'm still not banking on anything from that, even if he comes back. I don't know if he's going to be a starter. I don't know how you just throw him right out there and start him in ALCS game 3 or whatever after he hasn't pitched since the middle of September. But the Rangers also have Jacob deGrom coming back at some point next year. You don't really know when. I mean, you're tentatively assuming it'll be the midway point in the season. And you're hoping that Max Scherzer, say he doesn't pitch the rest of this year and he just comes back and is healthy for next year, then he's still going to be an older pitcher. And the Rangers, had 7 guys they trusted coming into camp this year to be starters. And they went and traded for 2 starting pitchers at the deadline and 2 relief arms at the deadline because they knew they needed it. And they did. And here they are in October, and game 1 of the ALDS, they had to do basically a bullpen game with Dane Dunning and Andrew Heaney tag teaming. I mean, you can use all the starting pitchers you're going to get. And this Orioles team, I think they're going to continue to get better. Kyle Bradish had a phenomenal year. I think Grayson Rodriguez is going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball within the next couple of years. I mean, his stuff is just so good. And they've got a lot of guys in their bullpen. They're not going to have the mountain for next year as he's had Tommy John surgery. But Yanier Cano is a really good reliever. They've got a lot of other guys. Like DL Hall really impressed me in that game on Saturday with what he did. Tyler Wells has had some moments. But in these big moments, you need big stars. You need guys like Corey Seager. I know Corey Seager didn't end up getting an RBI today, but he had 5 walks, and he completely changed the game plan because the Orioles were so terrified of him beating him that he saw 1 pitch really even close to hittable all game long. And it opened up the game for Mitch Garver and Adolis Garcia to have great games and drive-in runs, and guys later on, and Evan Carter and Jonah Heim, and later down on in the lineup, and Josh Young and Leody Taveras. Sometimes you just need those star A1 guys that you dish out. Not everybody has to spend, $300 million on a player, but to extend your own guys, which it seems like already with these, second-year player and Adley Rutschman and first-year player in Gunnar Henderson, they're already thinking about, I don't know how we can keep these guys on the roster in 4 or 5 years whenever their contract gets up. Like that's not a great thing. And I think that is a big difference with the Rangers being aggressive. It might end up backfiring. It probably will mean that their win of contention will be shorter than the Orioles. It might not be, but I think right now, going all in, you can see the difference between these two teams. Now, it might end up working out. It might not. I mean, this thing is by far like not anywhere close to finished, but the Rangers did the hardest thing they could do. I said this on the preview show on Friday, and I will say it again. If the Rangers went in and took game one, I thought there's a chance, pretty decent one, that this team sweeps. Now, the Rangers have taken the first two in Baltimore, punched them in the mouth. And oh, by the way, game three, they have Nate Eovaldi on the hill, looking like the best version of himself last week against Tampa Bay Rays. Hopefully he can go out to the first playoff game played by the Texas Rangers in this new stadium, close out and send them to their first ALCS in 12 freaking years. And I don't care who they're facing, whether it's the Twins, whether it's the Astros. I am so incredibly ready for it. This team is a juggernaut. People will be put on notice. I don't care if they don't get the respect they deserve by beating a 99-win team and a 100-win team to go to the ALCS. This team is darn good, and everybody worth a darn that's paying attention knows that this Rangers team is for real, and they are one win away from the ALCS. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing and commenting if you're joining me live or joining me later. Thank you all so much. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy playoff Texas Rangers baseball.